I'm going to go here, 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 here. I got 5 already and then 6. Go ahead.
My question is, how come they have so much nerve that they think they can pull this off and get away with it? And then the second part is, where are the Democrats?
Okay, two good questions. First, I would argue that, and these studies came out, and I started out as a political theorist, but it took me 10 years to write a book. Now I can write 1 or 2 a year if it's journalism. Theory's hard, but you recall the great theorist Herbert Marcuse, who actually worked with the OSS, the predecessor of the CIA, who wrote One-Dimensional Man. Part of the concept, he argued, is that Americans aren't critical thinkers. They have no oppositional thought. You know, the Soviet Union's undemocracy, but they don't really have a concept of what democracy is. And then they're inculcated and enculturated K through 12 with notions that we're the freest and greatest democracy, to the point where we may shock and awe people who don't have weapons of mass destruction and kill, possibly 100,000 civilians in order to bring this ideal. As a political scientist, I remain more skeptical. If we take the simplest act of democracy, a couple of them like voting, let me point out, in the 1980s, when we looked at democracy, the 50 hardcore democracies, since most countries in the world were authoritarian in the 80s, we came out 44th out of 50, sort of tied with Barbados. If you took those same countries in the 1990s, and now there's fledgling democracies in Eastern Europe and Central Asia, but those same 50 countries, U.S. came out 49. Now, we were ahead of Botswana. So, I think that's something to brag about, since most countries in the world still probably weren't democratic. But if we assume we're the greatest democracy, and then let's do the obvious, right? There's 435 congressional seats. Every year, coming up on congressional elections, I read the roll call. In about a year out, they go, there's 32 competitive seats this year out of 435 because of the gerrymandering, first by whatever party dominates the state, and then, of course, towards the incumbent, and then usually because of money, about a year out or 3-4 months out, it's usually down to the top 12, those people who could kind of raise money. So what you have is we have the least competitive legislative branch of any democracy. That is a reality. So, but the enculturation tells us that it couldn't happen. There's a variation that kind of says, that couldn't happen here, or it wouldn't happen here. Now, and this is something we got to break through. Here's part of what I'm thinking. When my dad was a Teamster union steward, and my brother worked down at Hoffa's old local 337 in Detroit, is that when people would come in, like Nicky the Greek or Dominic Fats Carrata, and grab the ballot box and take it in the back room and shred every single piece of paper, and then come out and go, yeah, Jimmy the Weasel won again. I think he got 78%. Everyone knew they were being ripped off. Now, if you do this with a shiny new machine, state of the art, really fast, shiny, or as my friends at the National Federation for the Blind says, robust. They started showing up and lobbying for Diebold, and I asked them why, and they said their machines are the most robust. So I would go and test the machine, and I'd come back and go, could you explain the robustness to me? It don't appear to be faster, quicker. And then I realized robustness may have had something to do with the $1 million donation that Diebold had given the National Federation of Blind, allegedly, in a lawsuit settlement on ATM machines. So robustness aside, is that I think there's a belief in techno-fix, right? High-tech. We got the quickest machines. They may not be the most accurate, by God, as in Gehenna Ward 1B, but boy, are they quick and shiny. And that any technician who walks in, it's just startling to me. And I was in some of these areas going, look, he's unplugging the machines. Look, he's removing them. Like, he's got a badge on. I could have made that down at Kinko's. So that becomes part of it. The second is where were the Democrats, is that Kerry, who pledged to count every vote, conceded with 248,000 votes uncounted. To this day in Ohio, there remains 106,000 uncounted votes, which if I believe by my calculation, if they were counted, Kerry would pick up about 30,000 votes. They were overwhelmingly in the inner city. Now, Kerry conceded in a variety of ways. One of the reasons he conceded, because he was getting information from Daniel Hofheimer, his key attorney who had given him $1,000, a probate, sort of family law attorney, who worked for a very reputable law firm, Taft Stentinius, the leading Republican law firm in the state of Ohio, dating back to, kind of Alfonso Taft, the founder of Skull and Bones. So, well, co-founder, let's be accurate. So, if you're relying on your information from, a guy that doesn't seem to have much experience and works for the leading Republican law firm in the state, I'm thinking that's not good. You're probably not getting the most accurate information. Yeah, he's not relying on, Right, not at all. He's relying on, there's other people, the independents, like, myself, we came to the lawsuit differently. I was like, okay, did I possibly see what I saw? Maybe it can't be this bad. It's too blatant. So what I did is I called public hearings, and I was joined by the Alliance for Democracy and others, and the Libertarian Party and the Green Party, but not the Democratic Party. And we held hearings, and 500 people showed up at an inner city church and swore under oath to the massive irregularities, from the vote hopping to being challenged to being turned away from the polls to the fact that some machines were pushed in after 7:30 as if they'd been hidden all day. So we took the largest amount of, which it's interesting because they like to say our stuff was anecdotal. Ours is the only evidence acceptable in court. It's sworn under penalty of perjury, sealed, signed affidavits, sworn before official court reporters. We're the anecdotal evidence, even according to the DNC. Theirs, which was survey research months later, that's the solid evidence. And so where is the Democratic Party? Well, the DNC says that 3% of the people in Ohio who cast votes, their votes were never recorded. But they conclude, well, it was evenly split between Bush and Kerry. They don't really supply any evidence. They suggest they called a few people. Now, if you do a basic 101 analysis, since when does the inner cities and the poor central cities split their vote evenly between Democrats and Republicans? It's one of the bizarrest, the analysis on one level is totally correct. The conclusions they come to are laughable. Any student in my Intro to Politics class would get a D, maybe just for good effort, or the good initial analysis, but the analytical conclusions are ridiculous. Where were the Democratic Party? I don't know where Denny White was, the Ohio Democratic Party chair, but I do know where he was in the 1980s up to 1992. He was a prominent Republican businessman in the city of Columbus, who luckily was one of the few the Teamsters allowed to run a double-breasted union and non-union operation, who was really good friends with Jesse Odie, the son of reputed mobster Guy Odie of the Sandy's vending racket. And they hung out a lot together. But then Jesse did those 10 years for stealing $400,000 in what he called his bitch walking around money from the juvenile fund when he was clerk of court. So I'm not exactly sure where Denny White was, or Bill Anthony for that matter, but who Denny appointed to take over Franklin County. But that expunged felony for money laundering, I understand, is way in his past. And I believe he was just snookered because he's lazy by Matt Damn Schroeder. And that, I don't have any evidence that either of them were bought off. I've always thought that they were incompetent and shouldn't be running a major swing state Democratic party. But that's just my belief, and that's usually why I'm not in good relationships with them. Okay, go ahead.